Did you always know that you were going to become such an advocate, such an activist, or did it happen by accident?
It was never my plan or intention.
Really?
My love was art and design.
Okay.
But around the age of 17, when I realized I was gay, I felt I wanted to do something, because I felt the injustice that we suffered was so great that unless we collectively did something, nothing would ever change. It wasn't until I came to London in 1971, at the age of 19, that I discovered the newly formed Gay Liberation Front.
Yes.
And got involved in those early meetings.
And what was it the Gay Liberation Front was set up to do?
The Gay Liberation Front was a second wave LGBT movement.
Okay.
Before GLF, there were gay law reform organizations like the Homosexual Law Reform Society. They had championed the passage of the 1967 Sexual Offences Act, which partially and very limitedly decriminalised male homosexuality in England and Wales, but not in Scotland or Northern Ireland.
Okay.
So Gay Liberation Front was very much in your face. You know, we weren't apologising, we were out and proud, and we weren't afraid to take on all the elements in society who were oppressing us. So the Gay Liberation Front targeted the media, the church, government, and so on.
Put pressure on everyone.
Absolutely.
Okay. At that point, though, was it not a very scary and somewhat dangerous thing to come out for certain people?
The police victimisation got worse after 1967, and so by 1974, the number of gay and bisexual men convicted of consenting behaviour had increased by 400% compared to 1966, the year before decriminalisation.
And your friends that were taken in, did it damage them long term, you know, with their mental health or anything like that? I mean, I can't imagine going through something like that.
In the early 1970s, not only did we live under the threat of arrest, but also of queer-bashing violence, which was much worse then than it is now. What was unique about the Gay Liberation Front was that it was totally unapologetic. It was defiant, proud, out and open. For the first time ever, thousands of LGBT people came out and campaigned to demand not equal rights, but liberation.
When GLF were, you know, fully functional at that time, what was the public reaction?
The public reaction to the Gay Liberation Front was very mixed. Many people were simply aghast that LGBT people dared to show their faces, let alone assert pride in who they are. When I first realised I was gay at the age of 17, I didn't have any role models or mentors. There were no LGBT organisations in my hometown of Melbourne, Australia. There was nothing positive, no model that I could use. So what I looked to was the Black Civil Rights Movement in America.
As a case study of something that's gone before.
Yeah, because growing up in the 1960s, the nightly news bulletins were filled with the struggle of African Americans against segregation and the denial of voting rights. And I saw their tactics and methods as being applicable to the struggle for LGBT freedom.
So we've arrived at Hyde Park. Why is this a point of significance to you?
It's significant to me because it was the place where the first ever UK Pride March ended. It began in Trafalgar Square and came here to Hyde Park. This is the site of where the UK's first Gay Pride March ended up in July 1972.
Unbelievable.
It began at Trafalgar Square and ended up here in that green area
right
over there. There was no stage, it was all impromptu. People bought food, a music sound system, drink, and we had just a big party in the park. We called it a gay day.
A gay day.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was full of happiness for a lot of people that felt, you know, restricted in the closet and suffocated almost by society.
Absolutely.
What was the day like for you? Did you speak to anyone like about your activism on the day?
There was a police officer for almost every marcher. We were hemmed in. Some police officers openly abused us as queers, puffs, faggots. It was really, really shocking.
Okay.
And there was nothing we could do.
Nothing.
Yeah, there was nothing we could do.
Completely powerless.
Yeah. But we weren't deterred. we carried on, we marched, and then we came here and had our gay day in the park.
What a liberating day that must have been for you.
We were incredibly nervous, incredibly afraid, but we were absolutely determined that regardless, we were going to make our stand.
Back then, in order to have consensual gay sex, you had to make sure that you weren't breaking the law by almost going through a rule book.
1967 did a partial decriminalisation, so it decriminalised sex between two men aged 21 or over in the privacy of their own home, behind locked doors and windows, with the curtains drawn, and with no other person present in any part of the house.
You see, you have to write that down, because that's too much to remember, and you might be in the throes of passion. Oh, mom's downstairs, can't do it, stop the, yeah. Wow.
Likewise, it remains an offence for gay men to loiter in the street
Together.
or to chat up other men with homosexual intent, even if they never had sex. The maximum penalty for that was 2 years jail.
How did that change? How did we get to where we are today?
It only changed because the police were challenged, shamed, and embarrassed.
Okay.
So it wasn't until the campaigns by the LGBT group Outrage in the early 1990s the police began to row back on their extreme homophobia. But that's only because we invaded and occupied police stations. We interrupted the press conferences of the police chief.
You did?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
We secretly photographed undercover police officers who were luring gay men to commit offences.
So what was it that happened here?
We're outside what used to be called the Chepstow pub in Bayswater W2.
Okay.
This pub in the early 1970s refused to serve anyone who was gay,
Wow.
particularly people who belonged to the Gay Liberation Front.
Okay.
So we decided to come here and use the tactics of the Black Civil Rights Movement. So we organised a sit-in in this pub to demand to be served.
Wow. How many people came that day?
About 30 to 40.
Wow.
And when we turned up at the bar and the landlord refused to serve us, we said, well, we're not leaving until we're served.
Unbelievable.
So then he said, I'm calling the police. We said, fine. A whole load of police vans arrived. They were from the flying squad, the really tough guys who deal with armed robberies and serious stuff.
Not people looking for a G&T on a Tuesday afternoon.
Absolutely not. So one by one, they started to take us out of the pub. So I and about 12 other people were taken out of this exit and then told to line up here against this wall. And then the police made us drop our trousers and take off our tops. So we were all standing there in our underpants. And then a big burly sergeant came along the line and then put his hands into our underpants and squeezed our testicles until we squealed.
Why? Why?
Humiliation. Punishment.
It's completely illegal.
In those days, the police could do whatever they liked.
They were a law unto their own.
Absolutely. After our eviction, we told the landlord that we would keep on coming back until he agreed to serve gay people, that he would get no peace until he ended his discrimination. The upshot was that very soon afterwards, this landlord and all the other landlords in this area decided that it was more trouble than it was worth to refuse to serve us, so they lifted the ban. So we won.
Well done, that's amazing. I can't believe it. That is unbelievable to hear. Through all the work you've done over all of those years and putting yourself at risk all of those times, I'm sure at once or twice you've been physically attacked.
In the 1980s and 1990s, I was one of the best known public advocates of LGBT rights. So I attracted homophobia like a magnet.
Okay.
I had over 50 violent attacks upon my flat.
50?
Bricks through the window, 3 arson attempts, a bullet through the front door.
A bullet?
I've been attacked in the street over 300 times, and I've lost count now. The assaults I experienced variously involved fists and boots, but also bricks, bottles, knives, sticks, clubs. Almost all the teeth in my mouth been chipped and cracked in those attacks. I've had to have reconstructive dental surgery. But more significantly, it left me for many years of suffering with extreme post-traumatic stress disorder.
I can imagine, yeah.
Or as my doctor said, ongoing traumatic stress disorder, because these attacks were happening over and over and over again.
It's extremely tough just for me to hear it, to think that, you know, one of my gay brothers has experienced that, and what you have done for people of my age to be so free and to allow me to walk down the street holding hands or to kiss my boyfriend is just, thank you. That's all I can say. So this is where the GLF used to meet. The building's gone though, is it?
Yeah. This is Power Square W11. Here, right in front of us, used to be All Saints Church Hall, which is where the Gay Liberation Front held its weekly meetings. It was from here that the first Gay Pride Parade was conceived and planned in 1972. From here, the Gay Liberation Front not only spread out nationally across Britain, but across the world. Because many of the people who came to the meetings were students from Latin America, from other European countries, even from Asia. And they would go back to their home countries and take back the ideals and tactics of the Gay Liberation Front and apply them to their own countries. It was really a school of global LGBT activism.
Wow. You've never been imprisoned for long periods, but you have been taken in, is that correct?
I've been arrested well over 100, probably 200 times. I believe sometimes it's right to challenge and disobey unjust laws. So, for example, even as late as the mid-1990s, when I and my outraged colleagues went to Parliament Square on the day of the state opening of Parliament and held up placards simply calling for the Queen's speech to include LGBT equality, we were arrested.
For asking?
And we were taken to Bow Street Police Station.
What happened there?
There we were put in the cells, and I can remember to this day the police officer who put me in my cell said, "You might be interested to know, Mr. Tatchell, this is the very cell in which Oscar Wilde was held after his arrest in 1895.
Oh my God. Do you think that that police officer that put you in that cell told you because in a way he sympathised with your cause?
I think so, yeah.
It sounds like that.
He may have even been gay.
It sounds like that.
Yeah.